Thank you for joining us today. And thank you for being part of Team Hope. By being here and being interested in learning these resilience-based strategies, you are officially part of Team Hope, where our goal is to literally just bring a little bit more hope into the world. Today, we're going to look at something called liftoff and landing. Liftoff and landing is something I created to help us with something that's called upregulating and downregulating. So our nervous system likes to get excited about things. It gets excited about fun things like rides at amusement parks, but it also can get excited about things that make us nervous or things we're worried about. That's called upregulating. But in order for us to relax and sleep at night and just have some downtime, we need to also be able to calm ourselves and downregulate. Sometimes our brain needs some help with that, especially if you've experienced stress, or you've had trauma, or you're pregnant, or you're hungry, or if you're on the autistic spectrum. All of those things require your brain to have some assistance down-regulating. So I thought today we would look at what are some things that upregulate us, what are some things that down-regulate us, and then how do we get in between those two? You're doing it already, but if we notice how we're doing it, we'll take it out of those lower regions of our brain and bring it into our cortex, our thinking brain, where we can actually pick and choose when to do it. So I'm going to look at liftoff and landing and cooling your jets, with a special thank you to Kelly Madamo for her artwork that's helping us with this today. So the liftoff activities are the things that bring us joy and give us energy. At the landing activities, we're going to look at are things that also bring us joy, but are calmer, more regulating. And then we're going to look at what are our parachutes? What are the things that we do that help us move from upregulated to downregulated? So the first thing we're going to look at are what are our liftoff activities? This can be people, places, anything that brings you joy. And when we do this activity, that's one of the things we're going to focus on. It's joy, because it's a resilience-based activity. So we're focusing on what builds our resilience. So what things bring you joy, help you access your energy? These are your liftoffs. So just take a moment and see if you can name maybe 3, 4, or 5. The brain loves things in sets of 3. So if you want to challenge it to grow a little, see if you can name 5 things that give you energy and lift you off. Some of the things that do that for me are right here around me. The Indigo Girls, they give me lots of energy and bring me lots of joy. My books are another thing that give me energy, and the ideas in the books and putting those ideas together into trainings. Oh my gosh, this makes me so excited. So what are some of the things that bring you energy and give you joy? Then we're going to look at the other extreme, because our brain can see extremes more easily than it can see the middle. So when you're calm and regulated and you're happy, what are some things that are soothing that bring you joy? So once again, I could turn to the Indigo Girls because they have some music that just is very calming and soothing to me. I also love classical music for that. There's books. Books on tape really are calming for me because I feel like someone's reading to me and it feels like such a treat. What are some things, maybe 3 things, maybe even 5 things, stretch your brain a little, that bring you joy and help soothe you and ground you? And it can be a person, it can be people, it can be places, it can be memories, any of those things. And now that we know our extremes, we're going to look in the middle. What is something that helps us move from upregulated and excited to downregulated? So when I've been reading books and learning new ideas and I'm putting them together into trainings and I am revved and ready to go, what can help me downregulate so I can relax enough to go to sleep? So let's think of some things that help you do that. I frequently turn on the TV because there's something visual. I love comedies, they make me laugh. I also love procedurals. What is that? Those are often mystery stories. Many of your crime shows are procedurals. They follow a pattern, and that's very calming to my brain. So that's often one of the things I go to. Cooking is another one of my favorite down-regulating activities. It helps get me from being excited to slowly calming down. And so think of, what are your parachutes? What helps you cool your jets? Once again, 3 things, or maybe we'll stretch ourselves and come up with 5. And now we're going to listen to how someone actually uses this every day in their own life.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ilea Duggar. I've been working with the Resilience Project for 5 or 6 years now. And along the way, I've gotten to really play with the interventions that are part of the project. The one I want to talk to you about today is the liftoff, landing, and cool your jets. I want to start by talking about how much it's impacted my own life, because I really do believe that all of these interventions, we should practice them on ourselves, notice how they land in our own bodies, and that really gives us a more nuanced level of skill to bring them to other people. So one of the ways that I do this is by noticing, right, when I'm upregulated, the things that will help me calm down and come back to a more calm, regulated state. And then noticing when I'm feeling a little down, the things that will give me some energy and some joy, so I can go on with my day and do the things that I enjoy. So I actually make this really practical. I keep lists around my house. So I know if I'm feeling a little sad, if I only have, 3 to 5 minutes to give myself a little boost, I might listen to one of my favorite songs, something that takes me right back to 16 and makes me want to dance in my seat. Or if I'm feeling a little stressed and overwhelmed and I want to bring my regulation level down a little bit, and feel a little more settled in my body, I might take a walk or something like that. So we can just start to notice how these tools really can impact our lives and increase the length of time that we're able to do this kind of work in the field without experiencing, the stressors that come with the ongoing exposure to trauma. So I'm actually going to facilitate this with you today. So I'm going to ask you to hopefully grab some paper and some colors if you have them. If not, a regular pen will do. But let's just do this together. So let's start with our liftoff. And so the liftoff is noticing things that give us energy and joy. It's really important that we notice both of them because stress can give us energy, but it doesn't always give us joy. So some examples of things that might give us energy and joy. Like I said, I use some of my favorite songs from my teen years. I like to kayak. I like to walk my dog. So just noticing kind of a range of things there that really give you energy and really lift you up and give you joy. So we can go ahead and pause and take a moment. And I'd like you to notice 3 to 5 things that give you energy and joy. And then I'd like you to get really curious about those things and notice how you can make them actionable. So what I mean by actionable is sometimes I don't have enough time to walk my dog, but I can still get the sense of energy and joy from that playfulness that we have by looking at pictures, right? That might take 30 seconds. Or maybe I do have an hour or half an hour and we can go ahead and pull out the leash and actually do the thing, but find a way to make each thing actionable. Another great example is you might find that you get energy and joy from connecting with a good friend. And maybe it's the middle of the day and they don't have time and you don't have time for, an actual visit, but you can text each other or send each other an emoji or a meme or something that will just make each other smile. So those are ways that we can make them very actionable in even very short pieces of time. So our second step for this is our landing. And landing, these are the things that give you access to your stillness and joy. And it's really important that we notice the joy part here, because sometimes for trauma survivors, when we get still, we start to have intrusive memories. and we can see some triggering happen. So we always want to make sure it's stillness paired with joy. So some of the things that land here for me include cuddling with my dog, reading a book, taking care of my plants, things like that. So again, we're looking at listing 3 to 5 things that help us find our stillness and our joy. And then how do we make them actionable? For example, reading a book. I might not have time to sit down and read a whole chapter, although sometimes I can sneak that in on a lunch break. But maybe I can think about the book that I'm currently reading and just remind myself that I have that pleasure coming later in the day. Or we might even, some people have, books that they're really attached to. I'm a Discworld fan myself, so anything Terry Pratchett related will make me smile. So I can find memes and fun things like that on the internet about the things that help me find my stillness and my joy. I also really love a weighted blanket for this one. It can feel really nice to just sit under that weighted blanket for a few moments, and it can help our nervous system find its stillness and its joy. And then finally, our final step here is cooling your jets. So this is really about how we help ourselves manage our transitions. So when we're transitioning from energy to stillness, or we're transitioning from stillness to energy, and what are the tools that we might need to help us make that transition safely and effectively while staying regulated, right? So I hear this often when I'm talking to people about their commutes home. A lot of people use that commute time to make that transition. And that's a really natural cool your jets. Some people might want to be silent and alone in their car. Other people enjoy being on the phone with a loved one. Other people enjoy listening to music or a podcast. So there's a lot of flexibility, and it's really about getting curious about what helps you make that transition effectively. This one, a lot of people struggle, I will say, to find 3 to 5 things. So I would invite you to notice what you're already doing to transition. One of the things that I do specifically is actually in the way that I play with my dog. You hear a lot about my dog today, but he is just hilarious. When we're trying to move from energy to stillness, we might start off by taking the squeaky toy and throwing it down the hall, and then he just runs after it as fast as he can. And we'll do that until he starts to get tired. And then the play starts to change a little bit, and it's less energetic, and it's more kind of little tussling and more petting. And then eventually he'll settle his little body down against mine, and he'll be in rest mode. He's ready to rest and cuddle completely. And so I think it's a really beautiful example of how our nervous systems move through these states very naturally in both pleasant and unpleasant situations. So this is a way for us to kind of biohack that and notice what helps us access the state that we want to be in the moment. So I've used this with lots of parents and lots of other professionals. My favorite way to use this is with the people I'm supervising or doing consultation with, particularly folks who are doing the kind of work that we do, working with trauma and survivors and hearing some of those stories, because we're exposed to so much trauma and toxic stress that we face higher levels of burnout. I think that's pretty common now in most agencies where people have left, where people are not working to the capacity that they did before COVID, things like that. So this is a way that we can start to address that and offer people safe and simple ways to find more regulation and to show up more effectively in their work as well. So with someone I'm supervising, if I was to hear things that make me think that they're starting to experience some burnout, or they're starting to approach that, or getting some of that secondary trauma exposure, I might just invite them to remember what gives them energy, what gives them joy, and actually help them schedule that onto their calendar. So they're starting to put drops back in their bucket. We know we can't fill that bucket overnight, but if we start to make this a habit where we're putting small pieces of regulation into our life multiple times in a day, what you find is that it adds up pretty significantly, and you start to see the person, regulate over time. When we talk about regulation, the first thing that we learn as infants is co-regulation with our safe regulated adult, right? And then we learn to self-regulate out of that safety. But what can happen sometimes is as we're exposed to this trauma and toxic levels of stress is our bodies forget how to self-regulate. So we can actually co-regulate with our colleagues while we're doing these things, and we can help their nervous system calm down and then have access to more self-regulation. So it's a really beautiful way to build the skill of interoception and regulation for all of your team members and the people that you serve and support. So thanks so much for watching today and for joining in with me in this exercise, and we'll see you soon.